morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Tell us where you're checking in from this morning, what you're drinking, get your questions in. We're going to have Marcus Myers join us in a little bit. We're going to be talking about Texas A&M, the playoffs. We got a lot of recruiting news that happened over the weekend as well, and we're only a couple of days away from National Signing Day, so there's that. But, guys, it's been a busy holiday weekend, I guess you could say.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready, though. Aren't you? Happy December, everybody. Just what we needed to roll into Christmas season 2025 was a win over the A&M, an A&M team that, frankly, looked outmatched in the second half on Friday night. Texas rolling 27-17. Best game of the year, I thought, from the Texas offense overall against what was supposed to be a vaunted Texas A&M defense. I think that's clearly not the case. They're not as good as they looked like on paper because maybe they didn't play anybody this year other than Notre Dame. And when they did play Notre Dame, they give up 41 as well. So that A&M defense living on borrowed time. Texas, though, what I thought was most impressive, Jerry, stripping everything away. Texas was more physical at the line of scrimmage, on both lines of scrimmage, than Texas A&M. And Mike Elko, for the second straight year, got whipped on the lines of scrimmage. So all this, we're tougher now and we're changing the Aggie way. You're not as tough as Texas, buddy. So that's my opinion. And Texas had a great game plan, executed it. All of those things. Arch came alive in the second half, so did the run game.
Yeah, I thought the great thing was some of the guys that stepped up in that game for me. Ethan Burke and Trey Wisner will go down in history as Aggie slayers, right? And both of those guys. Ethan Burke had a great game last year in College Station, had a great game Friday in Austin. His final home game as a Longhorn. Trey Wisner, 2 years in a row. He have 341 yards rushing, 342 in those two games combined. So huge games there. But then you look at through injury, like these games, a lot of times these games come down to some unlikely heroes, right? Jack Injury's best game as a Longhorn. Kobe Black off the bench because Cade Phillips gets hurt early. Big interception, had some physical hits too. He showed up off the bench in that game, had a couple of big plays. Justice Terry, while the stat line wasn't big for him, that hit on Marcel Reed caused that interception because he won on a one-on-one matchup, and Marcel Reed could not step into that throw. Thus, he rushed the throw and threw it into harm's way. Well, Justice Terry's pass rush made that play. Michael Taft goes down as the guy that gets the interception. Justice Terry made the play. So there were some unlikely heroes, which you always need in games like that. Like A&M would have needed a Terry Bussey to go out and have some big game if Concepcion and Craver were limited by the Texas defense. They didn't have that. They didn't have their unlikely heroes. Leona LaFau, we talked about all week. Well, if Anthony Hill can't go, as the chances kept going that we're slimmer and slimmer he plays, then Ty Anthony Smith is suspended for the first half. What's going to happen at Texas linebacker? Who's going to step up? You knew A&M was going to try to run the football. LaFau's first double-digit tackle game of his career after losing snaps over the course of the season to Ty Anthony Smith in certain games. Unlikely heroes.
11 tackles for
11. Yeah.
LaFau specifically, Jerry.
Yeah. First ever double-digit tackle game. I mean, Colin Simmons is going to deliver at this point, right? I mean, that's a given. He's a top 3 defensive player in college football this year.
He's a stud.
I mean, him and Arvell Reese are just like, I think, and Dylan Stewart, those three are head and shoulders, and you can't really put Stewart in there. He had some injuries this year. Arvell Reese and Colin Simmons are head and shoulders above other guys in college football to me, as edge pass rush guys, as either outside backers, edge guys, whatever you want to call them. I mean, those guys are special players. But Texas needed unlikely heroes, and they got them. And Texas had a strong kicking game. By the way, strong kicking game. Boom Easter had a lot of punts into the win. Mason Shipley did his job. A&M has had kicker issues that went away from Randy Bond, the backup. That ball was low coming off his foot, but Ethan Burke was there to block it. A big play early in that game. So Ethan Burke came up huge for Texas. Both the Texas edges were tremendous in that game, and you always need unlikely heroes, and Texas got them. And I think the way Texas ran the ball, Rod and I were talking about this last night, was what you kind of hoped to see all season. They even ran it downhill with Trey Wisner a little bit. You know, they had on the split zone, they had the big run start the second half on the split zone play. They ran Wisner inside, they ran him outside. That was an inside zone that Arch Manning ran for a touchdown. Texas ran the ball inside effectively, probably more so than outside effectively if we get down to it. But they ran the ball in different ways in that game, and that was huge. Trey Wisner, 5 carries for 29 yards in the first half. He had 92 yards in the third quarter alone.
They were the more physical team. Texas was the more physical team. All right, we need to get to Marcus Myers. He's coming up. But first, let's tell folks about our sponsor each and every Monday. That is John Donovan of Longhorn Wealth Management. John's a proud Texas Ex's Life member whose wife and 6 siblings are all UT grads. It's his family passion for UT that led John to create Longhorn Wealth Management Group more than 30 years ago and dedicated to providing investment, retirement, estate, insurance, and all planning services and solutions to Longhorn families and friends across the country. John is offering all OTF fans a free 90-minute private consultation to learn how working with a certified financial planner can help you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. Schedule your own free 90-minute private consultation or call Longhorn Wealth 972-707-4900 or go online www.longhornwealth.net to schedule your free consultation appointment with John now. John says hook 'em and way to beat the Aggies to all of the OTF family. Thanks, John, for your sponsorship of OTF. Marcus Myers joining us now.
Morning,
you know, Marcus was sporting that national championship ring on Friday. What were you thinking, big guy, when you saw the Longhorns take it to the Aggies?
Man, good morning, first of all, and I had a great time, fellas. I can't, describe to you probably well enough how much I enjoyed that game. I really think it was one of those things. I don't know if I've done the I told you so much since being a contributor and stuff on here, but 2-3 weeks ago, I made it pretty clear that I was not worried about the Aggies, and I certainly understand what they brought into the game, but it's probably a version of what Georgia feels against us right now, if you're honest. Like, once you kind of have a team's number, and of course, for us and A&M, as much as they don't like it, they're still little brother, and every time they've had a chance to do something about it, all they've done is run their mouth. So I think it was a really fitting end to the season, and the game even kind of went how the season went to a degree where by the end of the game, Arch was playing some of his best ball. We had some really good young guys step up. There was a point in the game where I found myself kind of laughing because they started doing one of their little Marcel Reed chants, and then next thing you know, he's on the sideline trying to figure out if he can get back in the game. So I was really proud of the way the guys played. Really proud of the guys that stepped up, especially without having Anthony Hill available to us and not having Ty Anthony Smith available to us in the first half. The boys stepped up, and at this point, Sark and PK, they're running some circles around Elko and his crew. So I'm pretty certain that he's glad that one's over, and now at least they get a chance to, focus on something a little different.
Hey, Marcus, as a former linebacker, I want to ask you this question.
Sure.
What was it you saw in the Aggie defense that Texas exploited in the run game? Because I think it was clear they weren't fitting gaps. Texas was outnumbering them. What did you see that allowed Texas to finally get the run game going?
It's interesting, and I am looking forward to. Does Sark have a presser today?
I don't think so.
Not today. Dang. I wanted to see
recruiting right now.
Sure, that's fair. And I wanted to see what he had to say because, these last several, he's talked about wishing opportunities were there to run the ball. And I'm more of the mindset. I see Alfio, Big Cat in there, my brother. I'm more of the offensive line punishing mindset of you create your opportunities. And it looked like that's what they did, right? Like it wasn't just one way that they ran it. They found some different ways to take some advantages in the run game. You got down there on the goal line and even kind of switched it up. It was still a run call that made sense. And, you know, you had a guy that was physically explosive with the ball in his hands in Townsend. So I think, Bobby, they really just did a good job of finding a way to, you know, run behind their pads and you know, Trey Wisner is the rival killer, it would seem, and he continues to step up in big games. And then you have to give the offensive line credit. I mean, they as much as we've been hard on them at different points in the year, and there's still, you know, things that they're going to need to address in the offseason. When it mattered in the you know, last game of the season against, you know, a rival, they showed up and showed out. So I think it was just honestly, you could certainly point to scheme in different ways they did it, but a big portion of it was just confidence, man. Like they played out there like it mattered. I don't know if you could see the sideline shot before the opening kickoff, but the sideline was going nuts before the opening kickoff. The student section was going crazy. Like the environment in DKR was something that honestly, I don't know if I've seen it like that. I was telling a buddy of mine, one of my best friends, Jonathan Brown, last night, like, I don't know if I felt it that way. You know, like when you get the goosebumps and you just kind of feel it in your body. I don't know if I felt it that way since I played when we came back against Oklahoma State that time. It was truly, you know, I know it sounds overused, but it was truly electric. And last thing I thought was kind of funny, I saw old Billy Lucci kind of walking up and down A&M sidelines. And after he filibustered for like 2 hours last week on here, I was, you know, Blake was doing his best job to stay professional because I was texting him some stuff. But it's interesting. We haven't heard a whole lot from him since the game. So
I think it's interesting. He's always on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he's got one of the funniest memes of all time because when he's screaming at the ref years ago on the sidelines. Y'all have seen, everybody's seen it, right? I mean, it's almost like he's the SEC police officer for A&M.
He's going to elbow him.
Yeah. And of course, now the game didn't matter. And, you know, they have the national championship run to focus on. Yeah, good luck with that. I don't see Ohio State in this Ohio State from last year in this Aggies team.
How did Texas, I mean, look, how did Texas, in your opinion, Marcus, keep a relatively potent A&M offense at bay for so long? And because, look, I go back to, they didn't allow a touchdown against A&M last year, only 2 scores this year.
Yeah.
No touchdowns either game against either OU game the last 2 years. Is there something about Kwiatkowski's defense that manages kind of the dink and dunk passing games of what OU and A&M do? Because that's what they do. Marcel Reed, the stat that CJ came up with, was awesome. He was only 3 of 9 on passes more than 10 yards down the field. He's clearly a dink and dunk passer. Use your legs to get first downs, lean heavy on the run game. Is there something about PK's defense that plays into that and stops these rival teams that have a certain style of offense, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, there's several things at play, right? Like, I think we were fortunate enough to, by the time you play Marcel Reed, you've seen versions of this running quarterback multiple times throughout the season already. I also think it's, you know, for as much credit as we give, you know, Colin Klein for what he's done with that offense this year, you have to look at who they actually have played throughout the season. It's kind of the same thing that was being held against us last year. When you look at the SEC standings, all their wins came against the bottom portion of it. And then they finally played a team that, let's face it, had more of a pulse and they struggled. And then I think lastly, look, I think Marcel Reed is a talented quarterback, but a big part of why I also said I wasn't worried about the Aggies is I didn't see him doing a ton of true progression reads throughout the season. Sure, there were times where plays break down and he had to make plays with his feet. But at this point in his development, what I had seen for the most part, when a play was within structure, most of the time things were happening on, his first read, and they were going to really talented players that were making plays with the ball after the fact. I think we cause a lot of problems for offenses like that, especially the way in which we play, on the defensive line from that standpoint, and the athletes that we have to be able to throw at a team like that, and to be able to, hold a guy like Marcel Reed in check. And so I think once it was, really determined how we were going to go about attacking that offense and limiting them, in some of their explosive playmaking, it was a matter of keeping the ball in front of them, making Reed beat you with your arm. And I think he showed you pretty quickly that not only he couldn't do that, but also, like we said, he would turn the ball over if you put him in a position to.
Hey, Jerry, I'll let you have the next question. I want to say this before we do that. I am a KC Concepcion believer now. I mean, that dude is the best player on their team, without question. It ain't Cassius Howell or any of the offensive linemen or running. KC Concepcion is a dude. So that Texas almost had 2 punt returns. Look, I mean, he's a good player. Jerry, your questions for Marcus?
Yeah, so I just wanted to hit on this, Marcus. That last discussion about Marcel Reed. I don't know if you saw this from the stands, but I think his struggle is what you were talking about. I don't think it's that he can't complete the ball down the field, but I think his struggle is what you said. Anytime he had to sit in the pocket for an extended amount of time, unless you couldn't see it from the TV view on the watch with us and he was just missing guys wide open, he couldn't pull the trigger. Or Texas secondary solved their issues in 1 week, which you find hard to believe.
Yeah.
So can Marcel Reed actually play if he's forced to go to progression 2.5? That's the question. And what did it look like from the stands?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I saw the same thing, Jerry. It didn't feel like he was confident in whatever his first read was going to be. I think more times than not, it seemed we played a little bit more aggressive, with some of the switching up in the secondary. The other thing about that sometimes is, especially this late in the year, and I imagine that the team does a really good job of explaining to the fellows, what this rivalry is about, in a similar fashion that they have done for OU. And I think, some of those young guys, you don't know what you don't know. So it's like, man, I'm going to get out here and make plays. And, to Bobby's earlier point, man, Concepcion was the one that I wanted the most out of the portal last year. I remember seeing some of his games at NC State, and he just had a different, dynamic ability about him. But if you, put somebody that, has the ability to move with them, and you just prevent them from having a ton of free space to roam, then you certainly, have an opportunity. And look, I think one of the other things that we did is we also didn't try to correct everything at once. So the thing that Rod has continued to talk about is if you have a linebacker, if you have a tight end, they're probably going to have a good game against us. And their tight ends did okay, right? But it was also, hey, I'd rather your tight end beat you than KC Concepcion. I'd rather the tight end, pick up 10, 12 chunk yards than Craver being off to the races. And so I think it was kind of a matter of picking your poison. And then, again, just building on momentum. You get a block kick, man, like that. It was one of those, it felt like DKR rumbled in that moment. And so I think, the young corners really stepped up. I think it was very fitting for Michael Taft to get an interception in his last home game. It just, everything kind of worked together. And again, to do that without, arguably, your best defensive player, or at least 1B, to Colin Simmons, maybe 1A, if you want to call him 1A, and Anthony Hill was very, very impressive to me.
Last thing I have is, because we're going to talk about this afterwards. Where do you come out on the whole playoff ranking and with Texas? I mean, look, I think there's probably 4 teams that can argue they deserve to be in, right? Outside the guys that are definitely in, right? There's always going to be teams that can make their own arguments they deserve to be in. Where do you come out on this? Do you actually – because I thought last week the committee they kind of showed their hand. The 2 lost teams. I mean, is Utah 4 spots better than Texas last week? Hell no, they're not. I mean, that's that. Right. So, but they showed their hand. Now they have to do a reverse course on this. Are they going to show a reverse course, or and where do you come out on, just Texas in general heading into tomorrow?
Look, I love my Horns to death, right? And so I get it. I won't be the one making those arguments. I see them. I understand them. I just have a tough time making the case for it. I understand, what Sark needs to do in making that case. And I would want my coach as a player to make that case for me. And that being said, even as a fan, I would want them to. Me, I still come out on, I'm not in the camp of Ohio State cost you this. I'm in the camp of Florida did. Now, what I have the most issue with, to some of your point there, Jerry, is they have been so inconsistent in how they have done the rankings from the AP poll leading up to the playoff and then into the playoff rankings themselves, right? I think you lose to Ohio State on the road, what was number 1 versus number 3 or whatever ended up being at that time, and we dropped 7 or 8 spots. Then you beat number 3 and you go up 2, right? A lot of the things don't make sense to me. There have been other teams that have made bigger jumps than we've made, and to me, the only reason they do that is so that it is much more difficult for them to have to make a case for a 3-loss team getting in. If I look at the totality of it, I have a tough time for anyone to express to me, if you get outside of the hey, you lost the Florida game, understood, shouldn't have happened. You win that game, you're not talking about this. But if you get outside of that, I have a hard time for anybody to be able to look me in the eye next Sunday and tell me Texas isn't one of the best 12 teams in the country. And so that's where it gets tough. And, again, everything that we needed to happen from a chaotic standpoint this weekend did not happen. So the one thing that we went into it was you have one thing in your control, and that's to beat the Aggies. We did that, and we did that soundly. So to that end, you can make a case. That being said, I don't have a ton of angst if we're left out because, I think we had something in our control to do that. The thing that I do find most interesting, and I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name that tweeted it right now, is how they handle Ole Miss. And in light of how they handled Florida State, right, because Florida State was down at quarterback, how do you now not take something into account with Ole Miss being out the chunk of their offense that's most important?
They're all gone.
They're all gone.
Not just their head coach, but their offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Now,
Offensive coordinator.
Charlie Watts,
offensive coordinator, wide receiver coach, everybody that you would need there to make that 7th ranked efficient offense in the country is now recruiting for another school.
Yep.
And quite frankly, they're probably talking to some of the cats that are at Ole Miss. You've been seeing Ole Miss have decommitments left and right. So it's a lot of things that are going on in the college football sphere that will be really interesting to see how they get answered. And I'll struggle to see how you don't at least get moved ahead of Vandy. But again, I just think they're trying to prevent from any potential chaos scenarios in conference championship weekend where they have to put a 3-loss team in just because of how it all shakes out. So I don't think I'm going to be happy with how the ranking comes out, but I think I understand it.
Hey, so for the chat too, this is for everybody. Let's just say the committee does a bit of an about face. And I think Heather Dinich is really locked in and she doesn't think it's going to happen. But let's just say they did a little bit. If it came down, let's just say one scenario played out here. The last spot comes down to Alabama and Texas. And I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying the what if. If Alabama got to the SEC championship game, lost to Georgia, but already won in Athens this year, do they keep them in over Texas at that point? That there's a couple of scenarios out there that would cause unbelievable firestorm. That one is the one for me because I think it'd be very interesting to see what the committee did at that point.
And no matter what they say, they're going to be talking out of both sides of their mouth, right? Yeah. They're going to point to us getting smoked by Georgia, but then there will be inconsistencies along the way that you can show in other spots. They set themselves up for this. And, again, for me to just kind of stay consistent where I began, to some degree, we did as well by not taking care of business in the season and being in a position where we even have to rely on some of this stuff.
Texas did get smoked by Georgia, but it's also a 1-score game in the fourth quarter. I would say the problem that I have is this: lack of data points for other teams. I mean, Texas clearly has the most data points for people to look at. Mm-hmm. Do they not? I mean,
absolutely.
They played what? And Blake, can you bring up the rankings if you don't mind?
Yeah, three of the teams that are going to be ahead of them we've beat.
Yeah, and they played Georgia and Ohio State, which are going to be 1-3 or 1-4, however you want to put it. So
Right.
they've beaten Vanderbilt, they've beaten OU, and they've beaten A&M. So Texas has 5 data points ahead of them. There's no other team that I think has 2.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's one of those things where
I will
Go
say
ahead,
this:
Bobby.
that Ohio State game, Marcus.
Mhm.
I mean, Texas the only team all year that stayed within 1 score of Ohio State.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
I don't know that did Ohio State actually have anybody stay within 2 scores of them all year.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's what becomes messed up about it, Bobby, is we can build a narrative however you want to spin it. And so for them to, if you're propping Ohio State up, well, then you have to give credit for keeping the score so close. But the narrative on that well, that was early game in the season. They weren't confident in saying yet. Yeah, right. Okay, I hear all of that. But then, when you look at the rest of the body of work, did anybody else, hang that close? And so it's tough, man. It really is.
Florida was really early for Texas too, just for the record. First conference game.
You can point to your top cornerback being out of the game, right? I say as a player, it's hard for me to do that because it feels like I'm at that point making an excuse, right? I look at it as it's next man up. But at the end of the day, man, like you look at this right here, and this was the one from last week. A new one will come out, and the frustrating part is A&M will probably only slide 1 or 2 spots, if that, right?
Yeah.
And so it just
they'll definitely stay ahead of Ole Miss. I think, Marcus, that earlier. What is the committee going to do with Ole Miss with the entire offensive staff gone? Yep. This is not the same team that they were 2 days ago. Not the same program they were 2 days ago. I think they'll leave them in the playoff, but they will not host the game. I don't think. I think they're going to fall. If
Texas gets left out, they're going to be those pointing to the need to reschedule the big non-conference games that Texas has been scheduling historically. I don't know that that's the answer because I don't think Texas needs to back away from big non-conference games or tough opponents. I think that's what college football should be about. Maybe college football needs to relook at how they do the playoffs.
Well, I think
wait, Jerry, I have one more point. Case in point for me is Indiana right now is 12-0, right? Indiana had Virginia scheduled this year and changed that for Indiana University of Pennsylvania or something like that.
Yeah.
And so they're perfect 12 in a row. If Texas would have changed Ohio State for IUPUI or whatever they played instead, Texas would be 10-2. And to Steve Sarkisian's point, nobody would be doubting Texas is in the college football playoffs because they've beaten 3 teams ranked ahead of them. That's why I think this whole thing, Marcus, I disagree with you. Florida was early. Texas is 6-1 down the stretch and has beaten Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and A&M. So
and that's totally fair, right?
Right now than Miami.
And that's totally fair. And I get it. I just when I look at regardless of it being early, right? Like, and I respect your opinion on it too, Bobby. But even if we look how the season played out, you expected them to lose that game, and that was before we knew Manny wasn't going to be there, right? Like that was you expecting a different version of Florida that even ended up showing itself in the long run. So I think it's nuanced and it is something that's challenging. The problem is, my frustration in it is mainly the hindsight of it. We didn't talk about really much and I'm not necessarily talking about us, but I'm talking about the larger sphere of fans, if you will. No one really, Ohio State wasn't a problem. We weren't pointing it to being an issue until after the Georgia game. Because if you handle business in Georgia, then it's not an issue then either. So I still look at it as regardless of how early the Florida loss was, there was still an opportunity for us to have done things to take this out of everybody else's control and keep it completely within ours. And, now it's talking season, and we'll just see. I mean, this committee has done what they've wanted to do at different times. And so we'll see how they do this. The only other thing I want to say real quick, Jerry, is also for the fans, Bobby, to your point of them rescheduling that game, it's a bit tougher when it's two big blue bloods and these programs have scheduled these years in advance, right? So I don't think you're going to see all of a sudden this about face where CDC cancels it next year. And I don't even know if you'd see that with the home and home at Michigan in the years coming up. Beyond that, once you get to 16 and you're already at the 9-team schedule from what puts you in the best position of the CFP, then it probably makes some sense to rethink it. But as it's currently constructed, I think, we work more on handling our business and you take it out of everybody else's control.
I think there's two reasons why you don't cancel those games. One, we're going to 16 teams eventually. I think it'll be 2027 probably is what we're looking at. But two, big issue that people are talking about, but maybe we're not talking about it enough, is next year we're going to have a balanced SEC schedule. This year was an unbalanced SEC schedule. Ole Miss had a very much easier path to the college football playoff, whether they played a non-conference monster or not. Their schedule was a lot easier than Texas and Oklahoma's schedule. A&M, same way. We're going to have more balance moving forward in the SEC. So you're not going to be able to look. Now, you might if some team goes off the rails and a coach gets fired, right? There's nothing you can do about that. Or somebody has a slew of quarterback injuries and you play 3 teams that are on their quarterbacks. There's nothing you can do about that. But there's going to be more SEC schedule balance moving forward.
Yep.
And that is good. That would have, if everybody played the same balanced schedule this year, you're probably not looking at an 11-1 Ole Miss team, and you're probably not looking at an 11-1 A&M team. And so
I think with A&M, subsequent to what we saw on Friday night, I think you can be assured of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Ole Miss too. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's in that, but now in the future years, you're going to have a more balanced SEC schedule. And I do think that's going to alleviate some of the things that have happened this year within the conference.
And I know we're still heavily focused on this year, but I just want to prepare everybody. Like for me, I had us 10-2 this year and losing, either losing a game we weren't supposed to and potentially Georgia or Ohio State, right? Like that was kind of my thought process coming into the year. I didn't have it as tightly dialed as Bobby. But my thought had always been, especially with us having pretty confident, understanding that Arch would be back, that next year was kind of the year, right? I wasn't really expecting a natty run. It was, if we could get hot, it was possible. Go ahead and take a peek at that schedule next year. It's going to be a rough one, right? Like we're going to have to really come with it. And so I think, there's going to be some really important decisions made in the offseason. And I personally believe that the right ones will be made and we'll be ready to go after it. But I can be pretty confident in saying I don't think anybody's going to be talking about our schedule at all next year when you see how that thing rolls out. So, there's all kinds of nuances to this thing, and I'll be, heavily tuned in to see how it shakes out tomorrow. I get the sense that maybe we get up to 14, 13. My hope would be that they put us at least in front of Vanderbilt. But even then, you still got, everything that Bobby laid out before of the teams that are ahead of us. There's a case to be made. I probably won't be the one making it.
Who is A&M or who is Notre Dame beat? USC? I mean, who is BYU beat? Utah?
Well, BYU.
I don't know. What's the scenario if BYU beats Tech?
Yeah.
Then 2 Big 12 teams are in, unfortunately.
That ain't happening.
Tech's out.
Yeah, that ain't happening.
See.
Yeah, I don't think
it's a bad matchup against Tech. For that's a bad matchup.
Yeah. I just want somebody to call the committee out about this whole strength of schedule. If they weren't the ones to say it in the summer, then I don't think the angst around it is as loud. And with them having thrown these different precedents in the past, we already talked about Florida State versus now what Ole Miss is looking like. It seems like, they kind of roll something out there. They start to follow it. But then it even makes you think about all the changes they've had. Like having 3 people drop from the committee this year alone, including the chairman. It's a mess. And so I think this is one of those years where they're going to end up wishing that they had 16 because nobody's going to be happy however this shakes out.
Including representation from the Mountain West Conference and the Conference USA that, look, North Texas and Tulane could get in over Texas. And that's just those games.
That's the biggest issue.
Yeah. I mean, we could go on The problems
Sure.
with college football are myriad.
Yep,
No
I
doubt
agree.
about it. All right.
I appreciate y'all, fellas.
Hey, we'll see you again next week. See you again on Thursday night as well.
Yes, sir.
Recruiting coming up, Marcus. Big stuff coming. I know you went through that process. Going to lean on you a little bit, talking about that as well. So appreciate you very much. And I know I want to say this, Marcus. I've had so many positive comments about you joining our group here on Texas Football. We really appreciate you, and I think the fans out there do too, buddy. Take care of yourself.
Likewise. I appreciate y'all. Okay.
Thanks, Marcus. Later.
Good stuff. All right, Bobby, I'm going to let you take it away and tell people about some of our advertisers this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Tecovas, born in Texas in 2015. They're handcrafted. Anywhere worth going is worth going in good boots. Find your perfect pair with Tecovas. They craft quality Western boots for everyone, from generational ranchers and lifelong cowboys to first-time boot buyers. Tecovas boots are handcrafted with more than 200 meticulous steps for broken-in comfort right out of the box. And their in-store experience, they have one in Austin and across the state of Texas, is unparalleled with expert staff, complimentary beverages, and customizations. Go in, hang out, find your perfect pair of boots. Right now, you can get 10% off at tecovas.com/Texas football when you sign up for email and text. That's 10% off at tecovas.com/Texas football. Tecovas.com/Texas football. See site for details. Tecovas, point your toes west. Don't forget about their best in the West guarantee as well, where you get free returns and exchanges for 30 days. That's tecovas.com/Texas football. Guys, if you want to wear your Tecovas, maybe you need some socks from Hollow. They are lightweight, supportive, and unbelievably soft. They are alpaca socks built for the field. They're 3 times warmer than wool, yet still lightweight. They're performance-grade socks made from ultra-soft baby alpaca fibers, engineered for rugged conditions and designed to keep your feet dry, warm, and comfortable no matter where the day takes you. Hollow doesn't just make socks for the outdoors. They've engineered them for every activity. They're everyday socks. They're compression socks, even hunting socks and trade socks. For a limited time, Hollow Socks is having a buy 3, get 3 free sale. Head to hollowsocks.com today to check it out. Check out the alpaca socks. That's hollowsocks.com for up to 50% off your order. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. You can support our show by telling them that On Texas Football sent you. Again, hollowsocks.com. They're having a buy 3, get 3 free sale right now. Head to hollowsocks.com today to check it out.
And I'm going to tell everyone this morning about Prize Picks, because we make decisions daily. But on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. And it's simple. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get those picks right, you cash in. You can win up to 2,000 times your money. It's the best way to get in on the sports action in more than 40 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and right here in Texas. And obviously, the projections for college football are going to be a little bit smaller this week, with it being conference championship weekend. Waiting on those projections to come out. But don't forget, they have more than college football. They have college basketball, NBA, NFL. I mean, they even have esports, if that's your thing. So go check them out, Prize Picks. Make your own picks in less than 60 seconds. Turn your sports opinions into real money. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code ONTexas to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, code ONTexas will get you $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Okay, let's see here. We got going back to what we were discussing with Marcus at the end. I do want to read a couple of these super chats before we move on to recruiting. Tex Beat 62 says the nation is terrified of Texas. That's why they don't want us in the playoff. Aggie and OU especially want nothing to do with round 2. And
look, I don't know about terrified. We went over this yesterday in our roundtable talk. I don't know if people got a chance to listen to that. But look, let's ask Vegas, because Vegas is I mean, the best prognosticator of games and point spreads known to man. Are they not? I mean, we can all sit here and pontificate, but somehow, some way, Vegas is as good as it gets, right, Jerry? I mean, they just are. I mean, who would Texas be a definite underdog to? Ohio State, I think. Georgia. Anybody else in that top that a definite underdog?
You're muted, Jerry.
I would say outside those two teams, everybody's a pick'em game. Everybody. It's pretty much pick'em. Like Notre Dame and Texas pick'em.
Oregon would be favored by 7 points over. Oregon would be favored by 7 points over OU.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't agree with that. I don't think.
Well, are you talking home or neutral?
Either. I think Oregon's a better team. OU still hasn't scored a touchdown in 2 years against Texas. Yeah. They barely scored 17. They scored 17 on LSU on 2 broken coverages.
Yeah. I think there's two teams that if they get in the playoffs, people don't want to play because of the talent level. It's Miami and Texas. Those teams have underachieved this year to me, but from a talent level, those are the two teams that if they get in, people don't want to really see in a first-round game. That's the way I look at it, is those are the teams that have underachieved to their talent level this year. But if they happen to get in and you're in Oregon and you see Texas or Miami as the 12 you're playing, you don't like that game to start. Those are the two teams for me that are like, oof, let's hope they don't get in.
Notre Dame's offensive line will scare some people too.
Oh, yeah. Running back. No,
yeah, with the running back they have.
Quarterback's playing better and better. I think they'll win a game or two in the playoffs if they get in.
Alabama's been really unimpressive down the stretch, by the way.
I agree.
As OU, I know they beat Tennessee and Alabama back-to-back, but anyways, I digress. Texas is 6-1 in the last 7 games.
No.
A couple of more comments regarding the college football playoff. MP Houston says, great coverage by OTF as always. It'll be stupid if we don't make the playoff, but either way, I'm very proud of this team, particularly Arch. Hook 'em, fellas. And then Jeff Carey here with the very difficult SEC schedule. If we schedule a hard out-of-conference game going forward, we decrease our chances to make the playoffs.
If you lose.
Do what? I'm sorry, Bobby?
If you lose, you do. But I understand what Jeff's saying. He's right. I hope they go to 16 teams next year.
Yeah.
They've delayed the decision on that process until after this year or after this round of playoff discussion occurs. But look, there is no way that 5 to 6, if there's 16 teams, it is proven time and time again that 5 to 6 SEC teams should get bids, not 4, which is what the proclamation or the suggestion was. I mean, that's just the reality.
To Jeff, to your point though, I do think balanced SEC schedules going to 9, more balanced SEC schedules is going to change the game a little bit too in the conference. Because I think this year there was some real unbalance in the schedules. Oklahoma and Texas definitely had tougher schedules.
Texas played, yeah.
I mean, even on the Oklahoma side, people can say what they want Oklahoma's offense. Well, I mean, Texas had their issues this year too. But Oklahoma, their strength of schedule, Texas maybe 5 and OU 6. They're right there together. But they had a tough schedule too. So one thing I will say is either Texas or Oklahoma's schedule, because I'm not just going to say it's about Texas' schedule. Oklahoma had a tough one too. Either one of those schedules, if you put Ole Miss on that schedule, even though Ole Miss won in Norman, I get it, but it's the strength of that schedule over time, or A&M. Those teams aren't one-loss teams. That's the issue for me.
OU. All right, so Texas is 3-2 against top 15 teams. 3-2 against top 15s. You know what OU is? 1-2.
Yeah, I get it.
More data point. You can say there's no question who had the harder schedule. It was Texas. Texas had the hardest schedule in the SEC, period.
No, they did not. They had the hardest schedule of the teams that won, Bobby. They did not have the
Oh,
hardest
okay. So
schedule in the
not
SEC.
Kentucky or
Yeah,
Michigan.
or
Okay,
Florida or South Carolina.
yeah, okay, that's fair. Of
Yeah.
the teams that finished,
Yeah,
I agree with that.
yeah. I mean, Florida and South
Well,
Carolina.
did Florida play 5 teams in the top that are finishing in the top 15? I mean, they played Miami. They played Texas.
At A&M.
That's 3.
Georgia.
4. Did they play Alabama or Vanderbilt?
At Ole Miss.
5.
Yeah, I mean they played, and then they had Tennessee. So I mean they played a lot of teams this year. That schedule's pretty brutal.
Yeah, Texas played top 5, top 15 teams, and so did Florida.
Yeah, and so did South Carolina, but that doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah. Good enough.
Yep.
Quentin says Texas lost 6 games in 2 years, 5 to Georgia and Ohio State. Well, they punished Texas for 1 bad week in 2 years. And then Centertainment 10, you have to reschedule and have cupcake non-cons because that is your control. 16-team playoff is not. And then one other regarding this from Justin Yarborough. Big non-conference games can also help you get in the playoffs. It's a catch-22 scenario. Got to be better in conference play, he says.
I just don't see – my bigger piece is this. I don't see Texas stepping away and stepping down.
I don't either.
From any competition. That's – I mean, knowing Steve Sarkisian doesn't want to do that. He would rather see 16 teams get in.
Yeah.
Or, nobody is that is a competitor wants to see Texas truly step away from that. They want the system switched.
Yeah.
I just don't see Del Conte, Kevin Eltife, those guys saying, let's not play the best teams in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, I don't see that.
Now, and because look, this is not a long-term issue, I don't think. We're going to 16 teams. We're going to more of a balanced SEC schedule for everybody. I think this is look, I mean, there's arguments to be made for more than just Texas on that too. I mean, I think Texas is a better team than Michigan, right? I don't think there's any doubt. But if Michigan hadn't played at Oklahoma, they'd have one more win right now too. So, there's Texas isn't the only team that played somebody. They played the best team on the road, but they're not the only team. So, that's why I don't think that's the reaction is to cancel the games because we're going to go to 16 teams. That means 3 3-loss teams are going to get in the future. And then you're going to have more of a balanced SEC schedule coming up. And I think the balanced SEC schedule is actually going to be really big when we look back on this in a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with Jerry slightly. I don't think one extra game is enough. I like where Jerry's mind is going. I don't necessarily agree with him. I think that this is what I proposed yesterday. I think you should go to a 10-game SEC schedule, a 1 intra-conference game against the Big Ten, and then have one that's just sitting there. You want to talk about making more money? And then furthermore, I think NIL should be apportioned by how much revenue you generate, not the average school's generation. I mean, look, if you're the SEC and the Big Ten and you're generating the majority of the money, you should have a different revenue share.
No.
That's the bottom line for me.
Before we move on from the playoff talk, I do want to add yesterday, Texas was not listed as odds to make the playoff. As of about 30 minutes ago, they now have odds on whether they will make the playoff or not.
Where are they at? Are they last on the odds?
The way this side is a little convoluted. So they're not dead last, but they're down the list. But it is interesting because they weren't even listed yesterday. They only had 14
who is ahead of them that would matter? Is Vanderbilt ahead of them?
Vandy's odds are plus 4,000. Texas is plus 2,500.
So Texas is ahead of Vandy.
Yep.
What about Miami?
Miami is plus 650.
That's the bad one.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm waiting to see. We did the roundtable yesterday. As Is Texas going to move ahead of – they should move ahead of Utah, okay? If they don't, that's just dumb. But are they going to move ahead of Vandy? They won head-to-head. Vandy has the one more win on an easier schedule, but they did win at Tennessee in a blowout fashion. If Texas jumps Vandy, which means Texas essentially moved to 13, then people are saying, oh, no, there's no question. Miami's the tough one. That's the tough one. But if Texas starts to jump a couple of people and the odds are changing going into Tuesday, it gets a little more interesting. It gets a little more interesting because then you could easily come down to a scenario where if Alabama loses in the SEC championship, they get bumped out, depending on how that game goes.
Yeah, but does Miami take their place instead of Texas?
Yeah.
To Jerry's point.
Yeah.
And then we'd have 3 SEC teams in the college football playoff. Just stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is that Bama's FSU beatdown so overlooked? So true.
Also, Roy and
I think that's only because they came back and got an SEC championship game. I think if they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Want to thank you both for your super chats as well. I'll put them up on the screen while we were talking about it. And one other super chat before we move on. This one from Rocky P. The Jumbo troll and loud celebration really got to Elko. Legit the best game I've been to at DKR in my life. Del Conte's crew did a great job with keeping the environment rocking. Now he needs to live on the phone lobbying.
A lot of truth in that, Rocky.
By the way, Blake, you did a great job getting his comment up from the post game, because I don't know if you know this or not, but the official A&M's athletics site deleted that from his post game interview.
Yes, where he gets mad
by A&M.
We're talking about Elko. I mean, for Jerry, explain to people fully that.
I'll grab the clip.
Yeah, grab the clip because we started last night's show with it. But it's unbelievable that A&M, the university website and YouTube channel, edited that comment out. It wasn't that bad. Why would you edit it out? TexAg still had it up.
Here you go.
We didn't play the way we needed to. Can we close the door and run a professional press conference, please? My gosh.
He had been interrupted a lot, right? It's funny, and I'm having fun with it. He had been interrupted a lot because the door kept opening and closing, and there was tons of celebration around it. But why did A&M's University YouTube and take that down? Come on, man.
I'll say two things about this. He was clearly pissed off because he got his ass kicked.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the starting point that we start with. And then I'll say this. This is the same guy that says that he wants to have a professional press conference when he started one of his press conferences one time with So it's interesting how we all have, and I mean, he's not alone.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have moments, but he was clearly having a moment.
Yeah.
Good for him. I'm glad he had that moment.
I just can't believe they pulled that comment. Come on, man. It's not like he was questioning officiating or something. I mean, come on.
Came down from the dirt commissar. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm surprised the university didn't make a TexAgs take it down.
All right. Well, up next, let's talk about the coaching carousel. And I actually have a super chat to lead us into that. This one from Juan Garza. He says, Pat Fitzgerald seems icky to Michigan State. Y'all's thoughts? And did you see that PK is a candidate for the head coaching job at Kentucky?
I'll say one, I don't see that.
Kentucky's got to go all. I mean, the Lost Dodds told me this. So first of all, Pat Fitzgerald of Michigan State, I actually think is a good hire.
Great hire.
He knows the conference. He's won in that conference, or at least been representative of that conference. I think they need a win on defense at that school, and I think he could represent that for him. As far as just lost my train of thought.
Kentucky job.
As far as PK at Kentucky. The Lost Dodds told me this a long time ago, and I believe him. He said that what people want is they want the opposite of the previous head coach.
Yep.
Okay. So if you're firing somebody, you want somebody different. And Mark Stoops is a defensive coach. PK is a defensive coach. I don't think that Kentucky's going to go that direction. They're going to go with somebody on offense, try to get fans in the stands, create some excitement. After 13 years of Mark Stoops at Kentucky. I also will say this. You could see this coming the minute he entertained the Texas A&M job.
Yes, it was done. It was just a matter of time.
It's just a matter of time at that point. You didn't show loyalty to the school that stood by you when you were good and mediocre and decent and all that stuff. They're not going to show loyalty to you when you have a downturn.
Here's the Lexington Herald Leader, their early list of candidates, which is interesting. PK not on there. Will Stein, Oregon OC from Austin. Brian Hartline. That actually would make a lot of sense because you have to recruit Ohio's 3 stars at Kentucky exceptionally well. Brian Hartline, Dan Mullen. I mean, and Bobby and I 100% agree. You always go opposite of what you had. All these guys are opposite of Stoops. Bob Chesney, James Madison head coach. Mike Shanahan, Indiana OC, along those lines of Will Stein, Hartline, Brian Kelly, which, Charles Huff from Southern Miss. But those are the list of names that the Lexington Herald Leader put out.
I'm not a believer in Hartline as a head coach, just for the record. I think that's insane.
Yeah.
Mike Shanahan at Indiana makes a lot of sense to me. A lot of sense to me. Look at these lists. Look at this list. These are all open. This alphabetical order, I guess, is what you did, Blake, on this graphic. Jobs still open. Cal, it sounds like Tosh Lupoy might get that job, Jerry.
Well, he would keep his quarterback.
In Oregon nowadays.
He's the DC at Oregon. He keep that quarterback because I think he's one of the guys that recruited the quarterback to Oregon initially, even though he's a defensive coach.
That would be huge, frankly, because that quarterback's a stud. At Cal, he led the upset win against SMU to keep SMU out of any college football playoff conversation on Saturday. Coastal Carolina as well is still open. Kentucky still open. Memphis now open with their head coach taking the Arkansas job. North Texas open. Penn State open. South Florida open. UAB and UCLA open. Really, the big jobs left, if you don't count Cal and Kentucky, the big jobs left are Penn State and UCLA. Penn State has had 2 months now?
It's obvious, Bobby. They think they have a big name on the hook, right? That's the only way this job is still open is they think they have somebody. Let's see.
Is it Kalen DeBoer?
Let's see if they actually do. They think they have somebody. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, otherwise they would have already done something, right?
Yep. They think they're getting somebody big.
Man, if they do that and then Alabama goes on another search, holy cow.
By the way, North Texas.
I want to say this. That would be really good for Penn State first, Jerry.
Yeah.
Then the Big Ten actually becomes competitive again.
Yeah.
Because DeBoer and Ryan Grubb, those guys they'll have a quarterback at Penn State then and have them coach right.
Yeah. By the way, Neil Brown's being mentioned at North Texas. Neil Brown's also getting a little mention at Kentucky. I don't see that, but North Texas could make some sense.
Well, North Texas, I mean, people need to know Neil Brown's on staff at the University of Texas too.
Yeah.
As a assistant.
Yeah. Yeah. Coastal Carolina, obviously, that was former Texas OC Tim Beck. Memphis and South Florida are probably your 2 best G5 jobs going. That'll be interesting. Like South Florida, that's a really good job for an up and comer. If you
it's a winning job. It's a winning job.
Yeah. That in Memphis, whoever gets those jobs, especially South Florida, because they just threw more money at it. Whoever gets that job, if they just go in and do 8-4, 9-3 work, they'll end up being a Power 4 head coach in pretty short order.
Can I give you guys another suggestion when you're hiring coaches. This is a note to all ADs out there. Picking the Memphis head coach is typically not smart.
No, it
And
looks good.
The reason why is they have more talent than the other folks in their league year after year. And so name the last Memphis coach that has worked out for somebody.
Yeah.
You know, Ryan Silverfield went from Memphis to Arkansas. He's not going to have a competitive advantage at Arkansas.
No, he's coaching to get fired whenever that is.
Yes. I mean, and so look, Justin Fuente went up to Virginia Tech, fired. Good guy, good coach, talent even, fired. Mike Norvell, ask FSU fans what they think about Mike Norvell after he had one good season. They got blown out by Florida by 20 points on Saturday?
Yeah.
I mean, don't take a coach that wins at a small school or a lesser conference school that has a competitive advantage. I'd say the same thing about Tom Herman to Texas or Charlie Strong to Texas. They had in those leagues they were in had physical advantages over the teams they played. And you're not going to have that in the SEC. So
one of the interesting ones on that,
Ryan Silverfield.
One of the interesting things on that list was Jamarcus Shepard left Bama to go to Oregon State.
Isn't he just the receivers coach at
Yeah, but he'd been with DeBoer a while. I see how happy DeBoer actually is in Bama. Let's see.
Fair.
Well, we have more to talk about this morning, including recruiting. But first, Bobby, I'm going to let you tell everyone about Omaha Steaks.
Oh, I love me some Omaha Steaks. I had some this weekend. Deliver all the magic of holiday season with Omaha Steaks. They offer unrivaled quality and variety, and every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. They have a cyber sale going on right now. It's the perfect time to shop for unforgettable gifts, exclusive limited time deals, and more. Plus, orders placed by 5 o'clock Central ship on the same day. When you give Omaha Steaks, you're sending more than a gift. You're sending an experience. From the moment it arrives to the moment they enjoy it, they'll be thinking of you. So take the stress out of gift giving. Give a gift of handcrafted perfection, the kind that brings people together, and you don't have to know anyone's size 10 or 11 shoes, extra large, double X. Nope. Just get the filet mignon or the T-bone. 5 generations of uncompromising quality backed by an unconditional 100% money-back guarantee. It's America's original butcher since 1917. Save big on unforgettable gifts with omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an extra $35 off, you can use promo code ONTexas at checkout. That's all one word, ONTexas at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code ONTexas at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details.
And Jerry, I'm going to let you tell us about Vaughn Lane this morning.
I can do that. Holiday travel isn't right around the corner. It's here. All the seats are filling up fast for Christmas, for your Christmas vacations on Vaughn Lane, going to see family. You have places to be. That's NFL Sundays in Houston and Dallas. There's still 4 more of those. Family, holidays, why being TSA lines, oof. Being behind the wheel, driving on I-45, I-10, 35. Do it too much, not a great place to be. You feel like you missed too much. With Vaughn Lane, you just walk into the hotel terminal, check in within minutes, and you're on board. No TSA, no hassle. Selling the one of just 22 oversized first-class seats. Stretch out, recline, and enjoy complimentary Wi-Fi, snacks, and drinks. Want a beer or cocktail? Well, they got you covered. Travel is open now through December, so book today for your Christmas travel. Again, seats are filling up fast. Visit vaughnlane.com. Use code OTF25 to save $20 on your first ride. Vaughn Lane, private jet on wheels. You need this for any Christmas travel around the state of Texas. So much easier
Really
than flying or driving yourself right now.
love me some Von Lane too.
And I'm going to tell everyone about our newest sponsor. That's Aura. If you're anything like me, every year there's that one person you can never shop for. And look, I've done the Christmas Eve Mad Dash more times than I want to admit, but this year I'm skipping the chaos. Aura Frames is my last minute lifesaver. We're actually going to give them to my in-laws this Christmas because it's the one gift that actually feels personal. You can preload it with photos before it even ships, add a little message, and it shows up ready to go. You can even keep adding photos and videos from your phone all year long. It's literally unlimited. You just connect the frame with the Aura app and Wi-Fi, and you're all set. And for a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames. They were named #1 by Wirecutter. All you have to do is use promo code ONTexas at checkout. That's Aura, A-U-R-A, frames.com. Promo code ONTexas. This deal is exclusive to listeners and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning OTF at checkout. Well, we have a lot more to talk about this morning. Let's see here.
We got to get to recruiting at some point.
That's what we're doing right now. For Longhorn Frenzy says, good morning, fellas. Well, y'all have an extended show on early signing day on Wednesday. Thanks for what y'all do. Best Longhorn streaming show on YouTube.
All right. Plans. So just so everybody's ready. Plans for Wednesday as of right now, 7 a.m. we'll get going early because that's when the documents can officially be signed. So Jerry, myself, Blake will have the first go from 7 to 11 on Wednesday. We'll either then come back by 12 o'clock or 12:30, depending on whether or not there's more news. And some of that will be handled with Jeff Howe, CJ Vogel, Rod Babers, other people in our crew as well. And we'll be going over each player as they get as they sign, any last minute news and notes. But absolutely, we plan an extravaganza. Last year, we were on for 8 hours on signing day. It was a hell of a fun time, in my opinion. Texas ended up with the #1 class. I don't think they're going to get the #1 class this year, but there is a real possibility of some unexpected fireworks, in my opinion. As of right now, I could change in the next 24 hours. And Jerry and I have talked about this, and we're not going to really go there. Could be some chance for some fireworks. So. Let's talk about the fireworks that did happen this weekend, though, Jerry, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so one, I had before we get to the guys that committed, I was just say I put a story up on ontexasfootball.com this morning, and there's pretty much 4 guys. And look, I have Vodney Cleveland flipping to North Carolina. I think that's going to – I'd be surprised if that doesn't happen. So I think right now there's 3 guys because I think Richard Anderson's going to LSU. And I think there's 3 guys you're looking at for Texas, 3 targets, really. It's Malachi Lee and it's Bryson Martinez, obviously 2 offensive tackles, and it's Teray Davis. Could somebody pop up? Aaron Butler signed with Texas, never visiting 1 year. Not sure that was, in retrospect, that was really the move, but it happened. So I think there's 3 guys right now. But as over the weekend, obviously, we'll start with Jamaran Carlton because he's 26 class for sure. Then we'll get the Easton Royal. Jamaran Carlton flips his commitment. He'd been to 3 Texas games in November. So that it was just a matter of when, not if. I think the biggest thing for me with Jamaran Carlton is I think his best football is way out in front of him. He was 206 pounds as a freshman in high school. He was 281 pounds at Texas on a November visit. So he's now plus 75 pounds. Can he frame out all the way like Alfred Collins did? He has similar length to him. I mean, Alfred Collins ended up getting into the 320s from 275, 280 as a senior in high school. And Carlton's got that length to him. He's kind of got some similar in his frame. So could he get up to 320 in 3 or 4 years? I'm not going to say it's not possible. I think he's definitely headed to over 300, though. So he is not an edge. He is a defensive lineman. He is a guy that will be an eventual athletic 3-tech that's probably going to play some 5-tech and 3-tech as he fills out his frame. But he's got a lot of development to do as an interior defensive. Look how high he is on the snap. He has got a lot of development in front of him as a defensive line prospect. So I think his best football is way out in front of him. I think he's got a lot of talent. I think he's got a really good frame. The question for me with him, and you'll only know over time, is can he develop the way Alfred Collins did? Because Alfred Collins was a basketball kid. Mom was a basketball player at Texas. Very talented, had the feet, the bend, the length. He had all the goods, but it took him a while to get there. With Jamaran Carlton, he's got all the goods. How quickly can Texas develop frame one, technique two? It's a very physical position in the SEC on the interior of the defensive line. So that his best football is way out in front of him. So I think expectations for him early, if I were people, I'd keep those in check and realize this is definitely not Adwater instant player scenario, but he has got a lot of talent.
Before he chose Baylor originally, he was looking at A&M, a couple other schools nationally. I mean, he was recruited national player. Baylor obviously having some major problems right now. They also lost another kid from Waco to Michigan yesterday as well. I would say this about Carlton too, Jerry, and you mentioned going from 206 as a high school freshman to 281. The thing that he kind of reminds me a little bit of is he's that Lance Jackson type where you just don't know how big he's going to be. I mean, you literally don't have a clue because he's still growing.
Yeah.
And we'll see what it all means and whether he can get after the quarterback, et cetera. But he's got those long arms that everybody wants, and good player picked up for the Longhorns. I think it's pretty clear Texas trying to figure out how they finish this recruiting class. You mentioned those three guys. They're also visited with Josiah Vilmail, the defensive back out of Fort Bend Travis. He appears to be looking elsewhere right now, perhaps because of NIL. I don't know the real reason, but it looks like he's looking elsewhere at this point. But Carlton, a big pickup for the Longhorns. I want to say this. You mentioned basketball too. Alfred Collins, to your point, Jerry, was a tremendous high school basketball player, right? Carlton last week had 20 points and 17 rebounds in a game. So he's pretty good at basketball as well. And I always liked watching Temple on highlight film, Jerry, because of the blue front part of their pants and the white back parts. Tell me it's not fun watching Temple just because of that.
Yeah, they got a different uniform for sure.
Yeah.
The second guy, obviously, that committed this weekend was Easton Royal, who was one of the fastest players in the country, of top 3 or 4 fastest player in the country, out of Brother Martin High School. If you've heard the name Brother Martin before, that's where DJ Augustine went before Katrina. So if any Texas fans that say, hey, I've heard of that school way back in the day. Texas also tried to recruit a couple of guys out of that school as well in football. I think in the Charlie Strong, Jeff Traylor years when Traylor was at Texas under Charlie Strong. But Easton Royal, super fast guy, explosive speed, 5'11", about 185-ish. He's currently 27. Somebody asked, is he trying to get to 26? I think he would like to if he can. Most of the kids, if a kid has an opportunity to do that and start an NIL clock, they're definitely going to look at it. Now, you have to go get it done. It's not like it's a midterm thing. It's through a spring thing. Obviously, I'm not one that believes this recruitment is over. I don't believe that. I think there will start to be some pressure on him. But I think he likes Texas. He likes the offense. He's super fast. Some people are asking, look, I mean, this guy's going to run in the 10-4. 10-3, 10-4s on the track this spring. So he's super, super fast. He's sudden, he's quick, he's explosive, and he's long speed. He's got a lot of speed to him for sure. I think he's a notch below DeCorian Moore, which is a absolutely hellacious player and prospect. I don't think he's quite DeCorian Moore, because I think that was a true super freak. But just people always ask comparisons. I think this kid's really, really, really good. I think he's whoever's that guy right below DeCorian Moore, he's in that class, which means you're a top 40 kid in the country, if not top 30, because DeCorian Moore is probably top 10.
He looks like a natural catcher of the football too. And I will say this, this is the guy that I think they hope this is potentially Xavier worthy. 10.38, 100-meter speed. He's a little bit bigger than Xavier in some ways.
Yeah.
And he definitely is a better, and I say this knowing that Xavier Worthy is doing really well in the NFL right now. They think he might be more competitive downfield as a downfield catcher of the football, Jerry.
Yeah.
Whereas Xavier does not do a lot of 50-50 balls, if that makes sense. Easton Royal a little bit better. I think he's tremendous. The reason why I like him is, see that catch? Xavier Worthy doesn't make that catch. He doesn't make that catch. So I like him a lot of speed. Again, Texas, one thing I will say about A&M, they had a guy at receiver that literally scared you a little bit with Concepcion. Ran through tackles as well as run by you type of speed. I'm not so sure that this kid isn't that type of guy. Instead of thinking about him as a Decorian Moore outside guy, I think he's a different type of receiver.
Yeah.
And I don't know that you're going to find any better in that category.
All right. Let's see here. I think we got a other recruiting super chat we do from Lee Barton. OTF, great show as always. What's the new status of Florida commit Gravel, and what are Texas' chances at Jalen Lott?
No and no right now.
Yeah, Lott's situation has sailed.
Yeah,
is my understanding.
Gravel
is a no as well. I got to actually share some news. And I don't want to talk about how I know this, but I do know this. It's being said that the reason Lane Kiffin chose LSU over Florida is because Florida wanted a GM of their own choosing. Okay. That means Lane Kiffin wasn't going to get to choose the GM at Florida. So he kind of eliminated them. Former Texas personnel manager Billy Glasscock has been at Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin for 2.5, 3 years now. He is going to be the GM at LSU now.
Yeah.
So Kiffin wanted to control the GM and have oversight of that. Florida wanted to create a new model. We'll see what all happens. And I mean, look, OU's doing that right now with Jim Nagy. We'll see how that works out long term. We'll see how Florida works out long term. But the Florida ended up hiring the ex-GM of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who has spent more time most recently being an underling, I guess, is the best way to put it, for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah.
So that's some a thought process of how recruiting is changing, maybe a little bit, and personnel in general is changing.
All right, let's see here. McCluskey, I guess, on 3 had Ole Miss favored to land Easton Royal. Now Kiffin's at LSU a day after his commitment, and he's a Louisiana kid. What's your level of concern?
He goes to high school in Louisiana. He's a bit like Matthew Golden was. Though Matthew Golden was from the St. Pete area in Florida, moved to Texas in middle school. I think Easton Royal's originally from Florida, moved to the New Orleans area. We'll see. I mean, these recruitments should be battles at the end of the day if they're not recruiting the wrong players. Okay. And look, if LSU doesn't give it everything they got on Easton Royal, and I know people in the chat say Royal said that he doesn't care about LSU. I mean, fine, but he cared about Lane Kiffin too. I mean, so look, these recruitments are always get tight at the end. I mean, they should. You're only recruiting the correct players if you really have battles.
I think what's going to happen, let me ask you this, Jerry. With NIL resources, not necessarily, I guess scarcity is the right word. There are only going to be certain guys that are worth the juice is worth the squeeze in recruiting, like truly, like elite guys.
Yeah.
Easton Royal is one of those elite guys, in your opinion, correct?
Potentially, yeah.
Okay. I think he is.
Yeah.
And so he's going to command that wherever he goes.
Yeah.
And so I feel I hear you, but like Jerry said, this ain't over.
Yeah.
That their signing day is a week from Wednesday, a year from Wednesday, not a week from Wednesday or anything like that. So hopefully, though, he can push on here, and we'll see what happens over the next couple of months and next year. He's a tremendous, tremendous player, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, he is a tremendous player, and it really is going to. A lot of this stuff depends on.
Hey, wait, do you see this, Jerry?
Oh yeah. A lot of it's going to really depend on, and I'm not saying LSU would just Lane Kiffin would automatically flip role. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, how do one school value a kid versus another, right? I mean, that's what a lot of this stuff comes down to is that whatever that NIL is at that position and where that program's at versus the other program. And if one doesn't go have the same NIL bid as another, it doesn't mean they don't think he's the same level player. They just may see the need differently.
Good stuff. I agree with Jerry.
And
congratulations to Alfeo Veazey. His son, Alfeo, former Longhorn player, his son was committed, I believe, to Washington State. He has now switched his commitment to UTSA and Jeff Traylor. So congratulations, Alfeo.
Alfeo, you can trust your son with Jeff Traylor. That's what I will tell you. I've known Jeff a long time.
Well, we've talked recruiting a little bit, high school recruiting. People asking about the portal as well. Jeff Davis, do we think Texas hits the portal for interior offensive line and wide receiver?
Interior offensive line, I don't think there's any question that Texas will hit the portal and should. They lose guard, center guard. I think maybe Connor Robertson comes back at this point. He walked as a senior on Friday. But they lose guard center. I think they're going to lose guard center guard. Now I don't think there's any question they got to hit the portal, and I think they're very well prepared for that. Wide receiver is a different category. Some of that depends on who they might lose to the portal. Either young receivers or older receivers, who knows? But I think it's very possible, both positions. But interior offensive line is a no-brainer, in my opinion.
And I think, look, I would add to that. Brian Hudson asked, is Hero Canoe coming back? He walked as a senior because all his family was in town. I think he's still got a decision to make. I think
that's big.
I think it is still a decision to be made there. And I'm not saying he's coming back. I don't want people. I still think there's a decision to be made. There are a couple of conversations to be had. The other thing I'd say on offensive line is I think the toughest thing in the rev share is going to be holding on to your depth of young players on the offensive line if you're in a power program. So you may have a need for a starter at one position. You may also have a need for a depth player. So I think it's more than just one scenario. I think it's going to be hard to hold on to your depth.
Very. Very.
Let's see. Rob Baber's helmet. Swear nothing goes by faster than a college football season. Also, I notice when guys commit, Derek Cooper is always one of the first to comment. Who do you see transferring out if you're willing to say?
I think there's going to be – look, I think there'll be double-digit Longhorns transfer out. So going through a list, what that looks like, I don't know. And I'm not – and I will say this. I also think there's going to be double-digit at Ohio State, Georgia. I mean, that's the new way of college football.
Yeah.
I think one thing to say here, Jerry, as it relates to Derek Cooper, is he had a big game on Friday. You mentioned this, and then we got to talk about Jermaine Bishop's game this weekend. Holy cow. I don't know. I mean, there are big games, and then there are big games. But tell folks what Derek Cooper and Jermaine Bishop did this weekend, 2 Longhorn commitments.
Yeah, by the way, Cooper put up senior huddle. He hadn't put anything up. He put it up yesterday evening, I think it was. That's linked on ontexasfootball.com. And it's not complete, but at least he put something up that for fans because he's kind of been waiting. He had the high ankle sprain early in the year, but Madonna is so talented. And they play a lower classification, but before people say, what competition he's played? Same that Jeremiah Smith played against and all the other NFL guys from Madonna. It doesn't really matter. You're playing against fast human beings in that state. But Derek Cooper, they didn't give him the ball much. I think he averaged less than 10 carries a game. Here's his senior highlight. Less than 10 carries a game in the regular season because they don't have to give him the football. They're going to beat people. They're very talented. They have about 10 or 12 or 13 or 14 D1 kids on a 1A team. But they don't play 1A competition. They played American Heritage and St. Thomas Aquinas. They play a tough schedule around their classification. But so they hadn't started giving Derek Cooper the ball until the last 2 games in the playoffs. He had 14 for 171, 172, and 4 touchdowns 2 weeks ago. Then he had 34 carries for about 260 on Friday. So now they're starting to give him the ball when it's time to go win a state championship. They have a tough game coming up Friday against Jacksonville Trinity Christian, who they're not what they used to be, but Trinity Christian once had 11 Power 4 starters on a defense when I was at ESPN Under Armour, and I went to see them because we had guys in the Under Armour game. All 11 of their starters were Power 4 players. Unbelievable. They're not that anymore, but they're still talented. Jacksonville has a lot of talent in that area, so they're starting to lean on Derek Cooper to go win another state championships. What's happening now? They've got him back healthy. He had that ankle sprain early in the year. It kind of limited him a little bit. But there you see a lot of Derek Cooper. These are not slow players he's playing against. And he is 6'1". I think he was 209, 210 when I was there earlier in the season. But he's going to end up having a really good season, averaging 9.8 yards per carry on limited touches. These are all St. Thomas Aquinas clips right here. St. Thomas Aquinas and American Heritage. St. Thomas Aquinas essentially starts 11 D1 players on defense. So he's having a big game. While we watch this, Jermaine Bishop had 15 receptions for 328 yards, scored 5 touchdowns, had an interception in their playoff win over Forney, that's Javian Osborne going to Notre Dame, 2 of the state's top playmakers. But Jermaine Bishop's having a legendary high school season, has 108 receptions for over 1,700 yards this season. 108 for over 1,700 yards. He's having a great season playing both ways, playing until he cramps. They have a tough one this week. They're playing DeSoto. So if you haven't watched Jermaine Bishop, I'm not saying Willis can't win the game, but this is definitely their toughest yet, at being DeSoto. I think that game's at Floyd Casey on Saturday, I believe is when that is. But Jermaine Bishop, big game. Samari Matthews, Huff High, continues on there in the state championship in 2 weeks. He's having a really good playoffs and season. Samari Matthews out in North Carolina. John Turntine, they have a huge game against Allen this week in the regional final. He's still chipping away at North Carolina, still chipping away. Obviously, if they win that game, then they're going to either play Waxahachie. Cohen Brown matches up against Duncanville in the region final. Waxahachie upset, air quotes for the podcast, Duncanville the beginning of district play. Now they rematch again in the regional finals. So a lot of Texas commits still, a few Texas commits still in the playoffs. Derek Cooper had a big game Friday. Jermaine Bishop's having an unbelievable senior season.
I'm just watching this. When Derek Cooper's out the door, he's out the door, my man.
Yeah.
I mean, he got breakaway speed.
He's got the hesitation, the little hezzy skip cut in the hole.
Yeah.
A hezzy skip cut and ability to accelerate at 210 pounds. Very talented player.
I'd like to see how he runs outside zone.
That's actually when Texas. What's interesting on that. So I was at Chaminade Madonna for spring practice, and Chad Scott happened to be there, and he was filming from behind, had the camera recorder, and Derek Cooper set up the outside zone, read the backer, and hit it for 75. And Chaminade was a talented group of players and ran away from all of them. And you saw Chad Scott cut the recorder off and got on the phone with what I heard later was Sark and said, "Got to have him."
After a 75-yard outside zone run?
Yeah, he was filming it from behind, By the way, camcorder, pretty much the camcorders still exist. These coaches carry that around and then upload the video onto their computers.
Good stuff, Jerry.
Whatever. I'm not sure it's called a camcorder, but technically what.
Yeah, it may not be called a camcorder anymore.
Yeah.
To your point.
Yeah.
Love it.
But they still have the little recorder, and they're hitting record on it. They're not using their phone very often.
Yeah.
All right, Bobby, before we move on, tell us about Longhorn Wealth Management Group one more time.
I will do that, and I appreciate you very much, Blake, for asking about him. John Donovan, our friend at Longhorn Wealth Management, president there. As a proud Texas Ex's Life member, John served 15 years as a Dallas Texas Ex's chapter board member and is now helping lead the build-out of the Collin County Texas Ex's chapter. So bottom line, John loves to serve his fellow Longhorns, but now he does it as a certified financial planner. With that in mind, John wants to offer everyone a free 90-minute private consultation to all OTF fans to help them learn how you can best optimize your opportunities to maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. Schedule a free 90-minute private consultation with John. Simply call Longhorn Wealth at 972-707-4900 or go online, www.longhornwealth.net to schedule your free consultation today. John wants to see the Horns have a great signing day on Wednesday, and he says, hook them to everybody out there. John Donovan, Longhorn Wealth Management Group.
Thank you, Bobby. And let's see here. We got a lot more to get to this morning. So let's go to this one from Reckless Trey. He says, how many contributors do you anticipate opting out of the bowl game, not including NFL prospects and transfers?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Do you know, Jerry? I mean, I think that I suspect this is what I think is going to happen a little bit. I'll put it this way. I think that Texas is going to get 15 more practices for the bowl game. Okay. Some of those guys have already decided that they're going to transfer or likely will transfer. But I think Texas is going to use that as an opportunity to see if perhaps they want to go after those guys a little bit harder and try to keep some of them based on where they're at. So this is a great question, and we do not know the answer yet. Bottom line, we don't know the answer.
You're muted, Jerry.
As far as like early NFL entry, I mean, obviously, there's one that, Anthony Hill. We don't need to bring him up. So next, I mean, who could have a decision to make? Jelani McDonald? Could he have a decision to make? But I think it benefits a Jelani McDonald. I think if Texas doesn't get in the playoff, which is unlikely, it's going to be Texas and Michigan in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl in Orlando. You can get some really good tape in that game. You can kind of finalize your season in that game. I'm not sure Texas has anybody with the draft status as an underclassman to where you automatically don't play, Bobby. That's the problem.
DJ Campbell needs to play.
Yeah.
DJ, for example, Cole Hudson needs to play.
Yeah.
Jack Insrees needs to play.
Yeah. Jelani McDonald needs to play.
Exactly. Yeah. So to your point, other than Anthony Hill, I think that you'll see the predominant number of players participate.
Somebody brought up Manny Muhammad. I don't know. I don't think he's in.
Depends who they play, maybe, actually.
Yeah.
Depends if they play a team with a good receiver, you may need to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. The next super chat this morning comes from Justin Yarbrough. He wants to know, will Texas have more third-party NIL next season?
Have to compete.
Yeah, Texas is going to be fine on that. They are working through that, and they're going to be fine. I would not. It will be more true NIL now than previous, where it was a lot of, a lot of. And when I say true NIL, I'm talking about the Nikes of the world and that sort of stuff. But I'm not concerned. I would not. I think that there's concern, but there's always going to be concern because you want to have your ducks in a row and figure out how to do it. But it is being handled. I'll put it that way, in a way that makes me feel confident that Texas will get there.
I'm going to bring this question up. Does Texas even accept the bowl? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
100%. 100%.
Need to. Those are valuable practices.
Yeah.
15 more practices with Emmett Mosley and Ryan Wingo and Nick Townsend. I mean, guys like that need to get in the flow for next year, right?
Yeah.
Jordan Washington, those types of players. James Simon, big for him to learn more pass pro. Big for him to learn. I mean, just a lot of guys. I absolutely think so.
Yeah. And look, I think it's going to be – I'll be very surprised if it's not Texas and Michigan in the Cheez-It Bowl if Texas doesn't get in the playoffs. That's a massive – that's going to be the most watched bowl game outside the playoffs. That's a big game.
That would be, yeah, for sure. I think the other thing I would tell you that this being in a bowl game helps with, and having seen this over history, it helps your team understand what a postseason looks like. And so while Texas has been in the playoffs the last 2 years, you still want those freshmen to understand what a postseason looks like so that they're ready for it the next year, right? And so there's a lot of value in playing bowl games that's not just, frankly, not just practice related and not just game related. It's how do you treat your body when you have a couple weeks downtime? How do you get ready and focused on a game when you haven't played for a month or 3 weeks, which is what happens a lot in bowl games.
He said in Caden Durham interview poll. I have not seen that. We've been on air. I mean, does he still have the OU tats on his legs? He's from Oklahoma City, Millwood, before he moved to Duncanville. He grew up an OU fan. Oklahoma screwed that recruitment up at the end of the day.
They may not do it twice.
Fake.
Fake. Okay. Most of it's going to be fake. He hasn't even had a conversation with the lane train yet.
Yeah.
If you're Caden Durham, do you leave LSU? I don't. Where are you going to find a better situation? If it's about money, maybe, but
LSU may try to find a better running back, including Kaiwan Lacey,
yeah,
who's the current Ole Miss running back.
Yeah, I mean, Durham's pretty good too. Yeah.
I agree, but
yeah.
Lacey's a guy that maybe breaks more tackles than Durham. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Two really good players, so both are going to play in the NFL.
Yeah. If Durham did just jump in the portal, Oklahoma would be the favorite if they want him.
All right, let's see here. More super chats this morning. Speaking of the portal, Da in Texas says, could Michigan State running back be on Texas radar?
A lot of people could be. A lot of people could be. I think it's too early to say that. Let's wait until guys actually go in the portal. We can talk about that then. But you just don't know. There's going to be so many guys in the portal. It's going to be crazy. I'm just telling you guys. You think you've seen portal madness before? I think this year you're really going to see portal madness.
No.
And Dane, excuse me. I thought it was like something in Texas, but it's Dane, all one word.
I think by the way, the running back he's asking about is from McKinney High, Frazier. Or North McKinney.
Stars kicker from Arkansas, right? Is he from the Woodlands? Is that right?
That's where he's from.
Yeah.
He had a good year. I do think Texas needs a kicker in the portal. Even though they're bringing in the high school kid from Georgia.
Agree.
I think they need a proven kicker.
Punter, maybe not, because Bukowskis is an animal.
Right.
He's an animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think kicker, agree. Somebody asked about this. Lane getting a big NIL guarantee. Look, if the reports are true, LSU was between 17 and 18 last year, and they're guaranteeing him 25 a year. It's a significant jump for LSU. And that definitely helps Lane at LSU. That $7-8 million is a big difference from where they were.
Isaiah wants to know, how many defensive tackles do we have, and do we chase more?
Texas loves the 3 freshmen. That I can tell you, even though you didn't see much of them this year. Myron Charles, Josiah Sharma, obviously Justice Terry. Loves them all. Alex January becoming an NFL prospect. Murad Watson battled injuries second half of the year. Texas loves him. Look, I think Texas really likes their guys that they have. I do think they have to get an over-the-ball guy in the portal, a bigger frame over-the-ball guy, assuming all the rest of them come back that are expected to come back that played. Texas likes those young kids quite a bit.
And then we have one from Texas on my mind. Is the room for Wilcox on staff next season?
See how that shakes out. Justin Wilcox, the former Cal defensive coordinator, or Cal head coach, coached with Sark at SC. Could be. I don't know that he would take the place of PK at this point, unless PK looked elsewhere. But Wilcox, I think, would either be a special assistant to the head coach or have to be the defensive coordinator. He's that high level of a coach. So good question. He may have opportunities in the NFL too, by the way.
Yeah, he's really good.
Our next super chat this morning comes from JHS Bout 22. Says, Jerry, Texas won and dropped, then 18 off of one loss. Miami can cry me a river. They dropped 12 off of 2 losses. And why is it Texas struggles with the team and it's hard fought for others? North Carolina UT fan.
Well, the reason Texas didn't move up more in the AP polls, because the teams ahead actually had impressive wins too. So whether you agree with that or not, that's the reason they didn't bump way up. Miami's argument, and they have an argument. If they get left out of the college football playoff and Notre Dame gets in, they beat Notre Dame. That's head-to-head with same amount of losses. That's not a loss differential. That's the same amount of losses. So I'm not sitting here advocating for Miami, but I do think there's multiple teams that have arguments. Miami definitely has an argument if they don't get in and Notre Dame gets in when you actually beat them. And I know that was the first game of the year. I think Notre Dame's a really good football team, by the way, because I think they have a tremendous coach. I think the quarterback's good. Jeremiah Love, maybe the best player in college football, but running backs don't tote it that much at that level. But Miami would have a gripe if Notre Dame got in and they got left out. They beat them. And they have the same record.
I got a question for you outside of this that we haven't even talked about. Who wins the Heisman?
I think it's Mendoza if he has a good game against Ohio State.
I think it's Mendoza or Sayin, the Ohio State quarterback.
What about Pavia? He had an unbelievable game against Tennessee.
I just think I don't think so.
I think Jeremiah
There's
Love.
going to be a groundswell in the South, but it's not enough nationally.
No.
That's my opinion, Jerry. Jeremiah Love will be in there as well. You mentioned him. Yeah.
Love should win it, but the problem is these big schools are in running back rotations.
I got to be – the thing with Sayin, I was looking at his stats yesterday. He's completed 79% of his passes this year.
Oh, yeah.
Now, watching that Michigan game, Michigan has pretty good defensive line, right? Historically good defensive. Historically, they had pretty good defensive line. You realize he didn't get his jersey dirty?
Yeah.
And they're playing in snow. I mean, Julian Sayin, his stats are amazing, in part because he's been sacked 6 times all year. 6 times all year. That Ohio State offensive line is freaky.
And they don't play against elite edge rushers in that.
They don't. No. They don't. I agree, but I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Those are freaky numbers. I mean, Arch Manning almost got sacked 6 times in the first half against Florida.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so 6 times all year. That will help your numbers be 79%.
He's extremely accurate. He's got Colt McCoy accuracy.
Yes, he does. And maybe a better long arm.
Better long arm. He has more arm talent.
Yeah.
Well, while we're comparing quarterbacks, Edgar here says, compare Quinn and Arch's first year starting. This team's trajectory is only up. The team was young this year and has tons of returning talent.
I think the difference between Quinn and Arch's first year starting, Arch had a better first year. There's no doubt about it in my mind, but Quinn was also younger. Yep. He graduated a year early, so he literally was a true freshman when he started at Texas.
Yeah.
I also think that Quinn had more supporting talent that was proven at that point with Bijan and Roshan, right? But I agree that the team was young this year and has tons of return. We talked about this all the time. There are things that Arch Manning does that are just he's possibly a 1-1 pick. You know, is he perfect? No. Does he stand in there and take hit after hit after hit and get back up and then throw a dot? Yes. Can he move in the pocket? Yes. I mean, everything. Is he gutty? Is there anybody? This is the hilarious. It's his last name that people know. You know what it is? It's getting absolutely dotted at the end of the first half and beat where your head pops back on the turf, and then getting up in the second half and going 6 of 8, running for a touchdown and leading your team to a win, and still standing in there and delivering passes. That's what Arch Manning is. It's not the name on the back of his jersey.
Yeah, no, Arch is the number one thing he did this year was stayed physically and mentally tough. Because I still think back to the UTEP game and didn't know which direction it was going. When you literally have the yips and you throw a swing pass into the stands, you're having issues upstairs. And it was always upstairs with him. It was never about talent. But after that game, I remember thinking, I don't really know which direction this is going to go. I haven't seen somebody struggle like that. And he had more pressure on him than anybody. Physical and mental toughness.
Now you know which direction. To your point, now you know which direction it's going.
Yeah.
Because he answered the bell multiple times.
Yep.
Multiple times.
Yep. I mean, so that to me, that's the biggest thing he did this year. The immense pressure, didn't get off to a good start, then it snowballed the wrong direction. And then he probably had a lot of time sitting by himself, not even talking with the unks, by himself, where he had to have tough conversations with himself about self-belief. And yeah, I can do this, and no, that's not me. And, you know, he got through I think the toughest part about being Arch Manning and the pressure that comes with being Arch Manning. And that's the biggest thing for him.
Something that hasn't been talked about enough, in my opinion. You want to make Steve Sarkisian feel good? Have your quarterback give the head coach the game ball.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think that's
the right way?
That you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Did y'all see that?
Yeah.
Arch post game. What he wanted to go celebrate. He ran the ball, gave it to Steve Sarkisian. Sark looked surprised, like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
That's a meaningful thing for a coach.
Yeah.
So good on. I think that, to Jerry's point, were there questions, and should there have been questions? Yes. Are there questions going forward? Maybe he has a bad half. Maybe he overthrows it, but there's no question about who the leader of the Texas Longhorns are. None. Not at the quarterback.
JLB 919, you think Diabell starts a true freshman? No, because Arch Manning's coming back next year.
Yeah.
And he needs Dia's like any other quarterback. He needs time. I think the plan, he didn't commit to Texas thinking he's going in to play as a true freshman. He committed to Texas with the process of development in mind, just like KJ Lacey, just like Arch. The question around future Texas quarterbacks is how patient will they be?
Bobby, got a question for you from Cinco de Mayor. He says, I really need that hat that Marcus is wearing. Where can we order?
Absolutely. So we've got new hats in. You guys go check them out for Christmas. We also have a special coffee now that we got. We worked with Medici Roasting on that, the Austin area store. We have the mugs that Blake, myself, Jerry. Jerry's not a coffee drinker, but I am. And this coffee is the one that I chose. I will say I was the taste tester. But look, if you want to buy something for you or your loved one for Christmas or holiday season, make sure you check out shop.ontexasfootball.com. That's shop.ontexasfootball.com. When you order, we get the order out the same day. Again, that's shop.ontexasfootball.com.
All right, some more super chats this morning. Let's see here from Matt Hanley. Thank you, Matt. Hook'em gents. Sart looked like a new OC, especially in the second half. Does this change your thoughts for the offense in 26? And Jerry, your post-game thoughts on recruiting for 27?
I still think the Milwee move to the booth was pretty big for the Texas offense. I think that gave Sark eyes in the sky, took a little pressure off him on the field, had somebody on the same page with him who's been with him for years. They do the scripts together. There's a commonality there and understanding. I still think that was a big thing for the Texas offense. Recruiting 27, look, that was a huge win for Texas with young kids, right? Young kids, 27, 28 kids. Where recruiting gets so interesting is how aggressive is some teams going to be early versus other teams. That's really where 27 recruiting is starting right now. Tech has been hyper aggressive in 27 recruiting. And I think part of their hyper aggressive is they're trying to get some of those kids to reclass to 26 and never have a process.
Yep.
A&M's been hyper aggressive trying to build on the momentum the season created for them. I think we're going to start to see Texas get more aggressive around the junior day in January. Because while Sark plays the long game, and I don't think he'll ever change off of that, they also acknowledge that some other people are being hyper aggressive right now early, and you can't just act like that's not happening. So I think after we get through portal, get to junior day, I think you're going to see Texas step up their aggressiveness in 27 some.
I think Easton Royal was a sign, to Jerry's point.
Yeah.
And then I think this is the last one here. This one from Guy. How about Coach Sark calling CJ out for picking against them? Careful what you say, guys. He's listening.
I loved it. If y'all didn't see it, Sark kind of goaded CJ about picking against the Longhorns. He said that CJ, the people, I saw it, and the folks in the locker room saw it as well. But he said he was just kidding. He was just joking around with CJ. Look, I love it because one of the things about this channel that we've tried to be is we tried to be realistic with folks, which CJ was trying to be. At the same time, hopefully you guys understand that Texas being good is good for this channel. And so we have no pretense about that. And so I love it. And I try to be Texas friendly. I mean, we have former Texas players on all the time, in part because of that reason. We know that, that we want to see Texas do well. There's no harm in that. So we thought it was funny. CJ got a good giggle out of it himself. So all good, man.
And we do have one other one here that came in from Juan Garza. Are there going to be some surprise commits coming for 2026?
Can't rule it out. I mean, but it's known who the targets are. I mean, could something pop late? There's so much coaching uncertainty right now, but I think the known top guys are the known top guys right now. Ski Break had a funny. I'm just glad Sark doesn't watch the watch with us. Just saying, I thought he might have been during the Kentucky game, honestly.
I think he might have preferred to be watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Or the first 3 quarters against Mississippi State. Ooh.
Yeah.
But I think he probably would have been happy with the post-game show on Mississippi State. So there's that. Good stuff, guys. Or the post-game show. If y'all didn't, the post-game show for the A&M game, by the way, was one of my favorite of all time. It really was. We had a good time. Rod B was on point.
Before we get out of here, I do need to read this from West Orange Stark Mustangs 100. It says he's back home in Florida drinking Cafe Ole San Antonio blend, but he turned 65 yesterday and had first grandchild. Beat Aggie, a great trip to Texas, he says. Hook 'em. So
met him at a couple of events. Always like talking to him about the history of West Orange Stark and in the Golden Triangle football, and I'm jealous. That's a really good spot he's at. Good spot.
Happy birthday, Terry.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football presented by Longhorn Wealth Management Group. Want to thank them along with Prize Picks, Aura Frames, Hollow, Tacovas, Omaha Steaks, and Von Lane for sponsoring today's show. Bobby, what do you have later today?
We've got a number of different shows coming up. We've got the Lunch with the Coach with Coach Bob Shipley and Coach Brian Irwin. They're going to talk about the Aggie win and what Texas looks like, in their opinion, going forward into next year. We'll have also the live stream tonight with Coach Shipley, CJ Vogel, as well as our Rod Babers. They'll be hosting that, answering questions. And then I think we've got a couple other shows planned as well that are talking about portal, recruiting, et cetera. Big stuff going on. It's a sprint now, and I know this is strange, but a sprint now to Wednesday on recruiting, and then those big rankings come out, college football playoff. It is remote, we believe, the chance for Texas, but the chance still exists for the Longhorns.
Well, we will be back same time, same place tomorrow morning. Hope you all have a great day today. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.
Hook 'em horns.